Leviticus 15:25. And if a woman have an issue of blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it be run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanliness shall be the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. And every bed where she lies on the days of her issue shall be as the bed of her separation. And whatever she sits on shall be unclean until the time of her separation, or to the time of her healing. And whoever touches the thing shall be unclean until the time of her healing. Mark chapter 5, verse 25. It says, and a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse. But when she heard of Jesus, came in behind him in the press, and touched his garment. For she said, if I may but just touch his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she had been healed of that plague. And Jesus, knowing immediately in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned himself about in the press and said, who touched my clothes? And his disciples looked at him and said, you see all these people around us. How are you saying, who touched me? And he looked about and saw the one that did it. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came down and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And this is where we're going. And he said unto her, daughter, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. Before you sit down, I just want you to look at your neighbor and say these words. I didn't know I had it in me. You may be seated. I didn't know I had it in me. I don't know how much I plan to preach tonight as much as I just want to have a conversation with you tonight. I must forewarn you that whenever I come into this type of conversation, it's something like what my grandmother used to say, I might get all up in your Kool-Aid tonight. And whenever one hears this type of message, there's always someone listening who assumes that the message is the result of privy information given in confidence about somebody's character. But let me disarm anyone at the start of this conversation and let you know that the only individual whose circumstances of life gave inspiration for words that will be spoken tonight is myself. Because if I could be honest and transparent with you, I would tell you that over the last maybe year or so, my prayer has changed. I don't necessarily go to God asking him to bless me in my finances, bless me with things. But my consistent prayer lately has turned into, Lord, make me better. Now, I believe in asking God for more. I believe in asking God to bless you, but the best investment that you can make is the investment in yourself. Many of us have never even thought about investing in ourselves because we have been so conditioned into thinking that making everybody else better is the Christian thing to do. And if you subscribe to that paradigm of prayer, I just want to ask you this one question. How long can you pour out of an empty cup? It is a melancholy truth that many of us in our prayer time, we put our names last on the list, as if we feel selfish about praying for ourselves. But I would submit to you that you are no good to the hurting if you are hurting yourself. 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 11 is that famous prayer. They wrote books about it and songs about it when Jabez prayed that prayer. Lord, bless who? Me, indeed. I have found that the best thing that I can do for anybody else is to be the best me that I can be. Because, Pastor, I don't want to get to the end of the journey and leave any amount of potential on the table. Most people don't think about investing in themselves because they think that the definition of better is being what somebody else is or having what somebody else has. We tend to measure ourselves by the achievements and the goals that other people have in their lives. But that's because you don't know how special you really are. See, the truth of the matter is the quickest way to kill something special is by comparing it to someone else. I'm going to use this story tonight as a backdrop as we talk tonight, because this woman is very fascinating to me. Because here you have a woman that has had an issue, and I'll just take this liberty and step out on a limb here and say it by faith that everybody in this room probably has some issues. You look at your neighbor and say, he's talking to you right now. But this woman had an issue, and nowhere in the scripture does it say why she has an issue. Most of us are like this woman. We have issues. But the difference between her and a lot of us is that she knows she's got issues. Anybody know somebody that got some issues and they don't know it? Many of us are walking around with issues and we don't even know we have them. It's gonna get a little rough right here in this patch right here. We've got tainted views derived from being mishandled as a child. We've got problems building and maintaining healthy relationships due to low self-esteem stemming from childhood trauma. See, really, it's not your friends that hurt you the most, but who you get most frustrated with are the people who are related to you who's supposed to look out for you. I don't get so hurt about what the folks on my job think about me, but when the people in my house don't respect me, it takes me to another place of pain. And I'll just say this, a lot of what it is that many people are dealing with, wrestling with, are demons that have been assigned to you by your family. And you at 24 years of age are still wrestling with a traumatic experience that happened when you were 12. And much of how it is that you think and you operate is not something that you learned at the college dorm, but is in fact a reaction of what was fed into you at 9. And because we saw certain things and took in certain things, we then became certain things because certain things were spoken into us before we had the time to mature and develop. So it's easy to say when I became a man, I speak as a man. But it's easy to say that when I was a child, I spoke as a child. But the truth is, when I became a man, I still remember what happened to me as a child. So a lot of us operate out of unhealthy relationships because of what we saw, experienced, and endured as children. Because mama never remarried and kept saying, men ain't nothing. You then took that seed of bitterness of your own mother and it became transferable to you. I told you I'm getting your Kool-Aid tonight. Because your daddy said, I'll never work for the man. You then can't hold a job because you walk in with your subconscious echoing that the man doesn't mean me any good. So if he fired me, never mind that I showed up late 3 times last week. But I came tonight to tell somebody that if where you are were predicated on who your family is, you wouldn't have half of what you have. But the truth is God selected you out of a crazy house to bring you into a place of full wholeness. And somebody needs to know at the start that if you want to get free from your issue, your first step is to be released from the failure of your parents. Because a lot of us set the standards that we can go no further than what our parents have achieved. And a lot of us, we got more degrees and we make more money, but we still live in the same cycle. You live better economically, but emotionally, you're still broken. But you've got to get to the place where you do not let your past dictate your future. That I am not who you say that I am, but I am who he says that I am. And he says that I'm more than a conqueror. He says I'm a chosen generation. He says I'm a royal priesthood. And let me just stop right here and tell somebody you did not deserve what happened to you. And not only did you not deserve it, but it does not define who you are. This woman had an issue and she did not let it define her. Not only did she not deserve it, but she can't do nothing to fix it. Anybody have a problem that you tried to fix? No matter how much she prayed, still wrong. No matter how much she gave an offering, still wrong. No matter how much she sang in the choir, still wrong. No matter how many times she came to church, still wrong. Anybody ever come to church and you had a problem at home? Matter of fact, when you got home, the problem was still there. Better yet, if you really came and worshiped, the problem got worse while you were here. Let me just ask you this. Anybody ever come to church and you didn't feel like coming to church? You didn't feel like lifting your hands? You didn't feel like singing a song? You didn't feel like hearing a sermon? Somebody don't want to hear what I got to say right now. Y'all not going to help me tonight, huh? And this is this woman's dilemma. She had an issue that she didn't deserve. She had an issue that she couldn't fix. But not only that, she had an issue for 12 years. We don't understand in our Western minds. But I read you the scripture, Leviticus. It said for 12 years, she couldn't touch nothing. For 12 years, she couldn't hug nobody. For 12 years, she couldn't go to work and she couldn't earn a living. For 12 years. For 12 years, there was nobody to talk to. There was nobody to lean on. There was nobody to call in the midnight hour. We spent 12 hours in the house and we're losing our minds. But 12 years, this woman suffered alone and by herself. See, we want a sermon on faith that makes it sound easy. Come on, everybody, be faithful. Everybody be faithful. Faithful is so great. But the truth is, faith is a hard thing. Somebody talk back to me. And it's even harder when you've been dealing with an issue for 12 years. 12 years. 12 years is time that passes. Time. I am a spiritual being. You are a spiritual being. We are spirits, but we live in a body. My spirit is what connects me to God. My body is what connects me to this world. So there's a part of me that's connected to God, who lives outside of time. But there's also a part of me that is connected to this world. So when you're connected to this world and you've been dealing with an issue for a long time, time will start talking to you. Anybody ever had time talk to you? Time will start talking to you. Where is your God now? So now my spirit is saying he's a healer. But time is saying if he was going to heal you, he would have healed you a long time ago. And the more time that passes, time begins to speak louder than faith. But you have to get to the place where you do not let your faith be exasperated by time. This is why David said, I will bless the Lord when? At all times. And his praises shall when? Continually be in my mouth. That means with blood running down me, I'm going to bless his name. When I ain't got no money in the bank, I'm going to bless his name. When you don't call me, I'm going to bless his name. Because he is worthy to be praised. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same down. So somebody say, tell somebody this. Let's say this to them. I will bless his name. This is why I'm so impressed with this woman. Because she is the personification of faith. She exemplifies the great move of faith. Because here you have somebody who has no reason to believe any of this, yet chooses to believe it anyhow. Now I want to talk to you guys about some issues here. Because everybody has their own way with not dealing with issues. So I'm going to tell you how people don't deal with them before we talk about dealing with them. First way that people deal with them is by ignoring them. You ever meet somebody like that? They ignore them like they ain't even there. But the problem with ignoring issues is that they get worse. Bad attitudes turn into a short temper. Short tempers turn into anger issues. Anger issues turn into physical confrontations and verbal abuse. And before you know it, you start to realize that emotions that are buried don't die. I went to a screening the other day. Went to a screening, and it was a medical screening. And the doctor told me, he said that, Mr. Mays, we need you to have this test done, even though you're not having any symptoms. Let me skip to the end. I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. We'll do that, okay? So he said, but African-American men are known to have this even without any symptoms. So we want you to take the test. I said, okay, even without any symptoms? He said, yeah. I said, okay. He said, most people wait until they have symptoms. I said, okay, so yeah, they come after they have the symptoms? He said, no. He said, a lot of people get the symptoms and they still don't even come because they're scared. And he said that one of the most curable diseases are killing so many people because they ignore the issue. Many of us are ignoring manifestations of the issues we have buried inside. See, this woman had an internal issue that was manifesting itself on the outside. And you can never conquer, T.D. Jakes said this, you can never conquer what you refuse to confront. We see it all the time. People walking around with unchecked baggage, carrying around all day, and double dare you to say something about it. Strife becomes the norm and they become complacent. That's one way of ignoring it. The second way is the most common way, and that's by blaming it on somebody else. You ever meet somebody like that? You tell them that something's wrong with them, and they start telling you what's wrong with you. See, the reason why is because they've never matured enough to take responsibility for their own actions. They always tell you that it's somebody else's fault. I like to say it like this, they walk around with victim tattooed on their forehead. You can always tell somebody when they have a victim mentality because whenever they're wrong, instead of acknowledging what they did, they will bring up what somebody else did. And if you're taking notes, you should write this one down. When it comes to victims, correction leads to deflection. I'll say that again. Correction leads to deflection. They'll take any means necessary to get the attention off of themselves. Victims are dependent people. They're dependent to people and circumstances to function. I need you to take care of me. I need you to do this for me. See, whether it's physically, emotionally, or intellectually, victims nestle themselves ever so slightly between the opinions of people. Victims are dependent people, and they can never build healthy relationships because relationships require interdependence. Can I teach this real quick? See, dependence means I need you to do it for me. Independence means I can do it myself. But interdependence means that we can do it together. So a victim is a dependent person. He cannot enter into a healthy relationship because he doesn't own enough of himself yet. He's still a victim to everything that goes around him. He's still a slave to his environment. He's still a slave to, if the weather outside is bad, he's sad. If people say something to him negative, he's walking around with his head down because he can't build a relationship because he's still in bondage to everything that's around him. But God never intended for us to live our lives by the validation of people. Just say this, validation is for parking. You got to get to the place where you understand, yes, I value your opinion. I thank you for I appreciate your presence, but I still know who I am. Anybody know who they are tonight? When you don't know who you are, you will let people define you. When you don't know who you are, you will let your circumstances control you. But thanks be to God tonight that He is our sufficiency. In Him we live, we move, and we have our being. Anything that she touches becomes unclean. And this was something that just came to me right now. Anything she touches. Many of us wonder why we're attracting so much mess, why the same type of guys are approaching you, the same type of women come in your circle. Whatever we are, we attract. My grandmother used to say, birds of a feather, they flock to what? Together. Why is it that all of this is happening? It could be something on it, because the truth of the matter is our spirit is a magnet. It has a magnetism. So now I'll get back to this lady. Imagine what that morning must have been like for her. This woman, she's getting up in the morning because she heard a man named Jesus was coming through. She's getting up and she's putting on her clothes and she's fighting in herself. She's fighting in her mind because everything in her situation is telling her that she should go back to bed. But she heard that Jesus was going to be in this place. I don't know, maybe it was a church on a Saturday night. And she's fighting in herself. She's fighting in her own mind. She's fighting in her own body. She's fighting in her own religion. Because Leviticus says you shouldn't even be out here. But she was so desperate after 12 years that she had to get to this man named Jesus. She said, I don't have time to be cute because this is a matter of life and death. See, when all you want is a little blessing and a little tiptoe through the tulips, you can take your time. But this woman said, I can't play hard to get anymore. This is a matter of life and death. And when it's a matter of life and death, every minute counts. She said, I don't got time to mess around. She said, if I can just touch his clothes, I'll be made whole. I believe if we could hear her talking, she would say, move out of my way. See, it's a shame when people can't get to Jesus because of the church. The church was in the way. Move out of my way because this is my last hope. This thing is killing me. It's killing my joy. It's killing my peace. It's killing my family. She said, I'm willing to risk my life by being out here in contact with the public because she made up in her mind, I did not come this far to be denied. Imagine that day. She's out there in the crowd. The devil's trying to kill me, she said, but I made it. I almost died on the way, but I made it. I may not be the prettiest one here in the sanctuary, but I made it. My hands may be bleeding because I've been crawling on the pavement to get through, but I made it. The doctors couldn't fix me. The lawyers couldn't fix me. My money couldn't fix me. Matter of fact, when I paid my money, I got worse. There's something wrong with me, she said. It's broke and I can't fix it. But I heard a man named Jesus is gonna be in this place tonight. And I believe if I can just get to him, I shall be made whole. She said, I heard that he opened blind eyes. I heard that he opened stopped up ears. I heard that demons tremble in his presence. She said, I don't have an appointment, but this is an emergency. I've got to touch him. One touch can set you free. One touch can turn a pimp into a preacher. One touch can say a heifer. Can you say heifer in church? One touch can turn a heifer into an evangelist. One touch is all it takes. Just take your finger and touch the person next to you and say, look here, that's all it takes. One touch can change your situation. One touch can get you off of drugs. One touch can change your mindset. One touch can take me from poverty and lack into abundance. Just one touch. Somebody's got an emergency tonight. It could be in your emotional state. It can be in your finances. It can be in your marriage. It can be in something. And I'm getting ready to close this out. But when she got to Jesus, she didn't have any more money. She didn't have any friends with her. And when she gets to Jesus, one small touch, Jesus is walking and he's thronged by so many people. One small touch. Jesus said, my God, who just touched me? There have been people touching him all day. There have been religious people touching him all day. But this touch had 12 years of desperation attached to the touch. His disciples said, what you mean somebody touched you? He said, I don't know, but something has come out of me. Something has connected to me. Something has pulled the power out of me. And then a woman gets up to him. And this is so powerful, you miss it, because we see that she touched his clothes, and we shout and we get happy. But what we don't understand is that the touch was the most dangerous part of this whole interaction. Because Leviticus said that if he don't heal her, not only is she unclean, but now she has made him become unclean. But she was so desperate for the touch that she said, I've got to be healed. Jesus turned to this woman, looked her dead in her eye, and he said, your faith. What you mean, my faith? Your faith. What you mean, my faith? He said, yes, it was my power that made the transaction complete. But it was your faith 12 years ago that got you here. It was your faith. It was your ability to come to church when you didn't feel like it. It was your ability to praise God when your child was sick in the hospital. It was your ability to sow a seed when you didn't have any money in the bank. It was your faith. It was your faith. That's the word for somebody tonight. Let's all stand to our feet. It has been your faith. I bet you didn't know that you had all that in you. See, at the end of the day, it was her expectation that got her healed. Because she said within herself, if I touch him, I shall be made whole. Our expectation is what turns the vehicle of faith on. Walk in expectation and watch God do what he said he's going to do. Come on, put your hands together. Let's all worship. All the prayer pastors, please come to the front. Before I have you come to the front, somebody here has been dealing with an issue. They say that your character is who you are when no one's looking. So the guilt of issues, those dark places, the enemy will tell you that you're not worthy, that God doesn't love you. But I want to give you some wisdom on the love of God. See, the love of God teaches us that the intensity of the connection is stronger than the disappointment of the individual. Love is stronger than disappointment. Have you ever loved somebody and that fool drove you absolutely crazy? Anybody? Am I the only one? This is why your mother didn't give up on you. Because while you were out in the streets acting a fool, love was stronger than disappointment. Real friends can handle your real truth because love is stronger than disappointment. The intensity of God's love for you goes beyond whatever you can do that you think will separate you from him. The real power of love is founded in its stubbornness. I wrote this down because I want to be real clear. Love is stubborn. It outlives its enemies. It's ostentatious. It's ambitious. But its ambition is its beauty. Love never asks for what it wants. It takes what it wants. Love possesses, it grabs, it overwhelms. Love doesn't listen to people telling you that they should leave you alone. Love loves you anyway. Love is compelled to throw pearls before swine. It knows that the pearls will get trampled, but it's compelled to throw them anyway because it's ambitious. It believes that it can still win. The love of God is wooing you so strong. You can never get away from it. No matter what you do, no matter what you think about, it's always reaching for you. It's always pulling from you, just like a mother would for her child. A child is locked up, she'll put her warm hand to the cold glass because she loves him. She'll sit by the bedside when he's sick, when the doctor says there's nothing else to do. This is the type of love that God has for you. When everyone says that you're hopeless, everyone says that you shouldn't be where you are, you'll never be anything, God still is pulling on you because he believes that he can still win you over. The unfailing love, the undying love, this is the type of love that God has for you. Whatever issues you have, I want to encourage you right now to come to the altar. They're up here, they can just pray with you. I explained all that love because that's the type of God that we serve. If you don't need prayer, you're dismissed now, but we want to let you know, if you need prayer for any issues, please come to the front. The altar is now open. People are coming. Come on, put your hands together. Let's praise God.